there and I was like, yo, my man, like, what's up? You know, like try to give him a pound and stuff like that. And he says, hello, you must be one of the friends on the other side. I was like, yeah, man, no, check it out though. But for real, man, this has got to be pretty cool, right? I mean, this is crazy, man. I never imagined that we would get this kind of ride down here in the park. Well, yes, because I'm looking for a frog that can I have to actually turn back into a human. I'm like, yeah, man, check it out though. I mean, it's just us back here talking. It's just me and you. So how'd you get this gig? Like, what happened? Well, you know, I'm after 5 I'm like, man, get the fuck out of here. All right, whatever. I get this. This is just going to be one of those days, I guess. Because, you know, what happens is, you know, these guys, they can't break character at the park. Remember Marlon? Marlon, I have a great story about that. They can't break character in the park. So no matter what, dude, it's like they stay in character even when no one's watching.
Yep.
We went into, Marlon and I, it's a quick story. We went into, we were just doing like a little presentation and we're, you know, so we wearing our name tags, stuff like that. So we go into the bar at Disney. So Marlon and I walk in and, you know, it's a bunch of white folks in there, just me and Marlon chilling. So we go and I go, yeah. So you guys want something? He's like, yeah, you know, we'll get, you know, whatever. What we getting, like MGD. Let me have Miller Lite, 2 Miller Lights here. And he looked at me, he's like, I can't serve you. And I was like, the hell? I was like, oh, we do this down here? We down south, ain't we? Oh, I see. You're not gonna serve me and Marlon because we black? He's like, no, I can't serve you because you got these Disney badges on and you can't be drinking in the park with these Disney badges. Remember that, Marlon? I just took the badge off. Hey, Bruce, calm down. We just got to take the badges off. That's all. So, yeah. So they don't let you, they don't break character. They don't let you break character.
Right. But you never said I animated. You were humble enough to not say that you created that character or animated the character.
Oh, I didn't get to that part of the conversation. I wanted to have a normal conversation with dude, but he wasn't up for the norm, I guess, right? No. So I guess he needed to catch me in them streets and then we can have that conversation after that. Right. Yeah. Twirl these fingers now, fool. You in these streets. Ain't nobody doing this.
I didn't even finish. Dr. Persichetti, Bruce directed one of my favorite films when I was growing up, Baby's Kids.
That's right.
That freaking movie, guys.
We don't die, we multiply.
That's crazy.
I loved it so much. Bruce created the original Proud Family in 2000. I think it went from 2001 to 2005, right, Bruce?
Right.
Yep. And then, and Bruce is currently a showrunner and executive producer on the Proud Family reboot, Louder and Prouder, which is coming out.
Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. Yes.
Prouder. Next year or the year after?
Yeah, that's what we're aiming for.
Okay.
End of 2021.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That's awesome. So I guess thank you guys for joining this panel. It's an honor to have you guys, and I just wanted to start off a little bit on so Peter, Bruce, and Marlon, you guys go way back.
We do indeed.
Well, are we doing this? Are we good?
I said we do indeed.
Yeah. You guys all go way back. How did you guys all meet? And then at that time when you guys met, like, what was the industry like? You know, I mean, it wasn't a long time ago, but it was just kind of in the recent history. So, like, how do you guys know each other?
Oh, wow. Well, I think Peter and his brother Eric are two of the first people I met here in LA. Eric, who's also an animator, has moved into stories, amazing story artist himself. Mm-hmm. We were working in a small animation studio down in Venice and called Tigerfly. It was right over this surf shop. And it was like 1989 and met Eric and Peter and immediately hit it off. I mean, it's like these brothers I've been looking for a long time. I mean, because we could talk about that too when we get into it a little bit. But yeah, it was definitely like kindred spirits. You know, I was talking to Eric, and my mother's name is Pauline, and I've met one other Pauline in my life, and that's Peter and Eric's mom.
Uh-huh.
And, so, you know, I think it came up like, I said my mom's name, and he said his mom's name. We were like, it was so much cooler than that Martha moment in Batman vs Superman. But it was like, it was kind of like, your mom was named Pauline too? And then Bruce I met not long after that on a film that didn't get mentioned in these introductions, Rover Dangerfield. Kids, look it up. Rodney Dangerfield.
Another cult classic. I work on a lot of cult classics. Cult classics sometimes even they didn't make no money. That's what cult classic means in most cases.
So yeah, Bruce and I like met on that. And so these cats, man, I've known like my entire life here in LA. Like, they just met each other relatively recently, but I've known them both for a really long time.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was at a time where, you know, you meet a brother in the industry, you guys just connect immediately. Like you just do.
Oh,
because there just is not a lot of us there. So yeah, I remember me and Marlon on Rover Dangerfield, and we kind of clicked immediately. So it's like, cause you know, it's barren. It was barren wasteland at the time.
Like it, right?
You guys, there were maybe you and I and one and Carl Halliday. I think there was like the three
right
on that movie.
Yeah. Wasn't a lot of us.
Yeah. Very cool.
And I still remember the time, each moment, catching all three. I mentioned it with Marlon when he was here, just the passing of the hallway. And it was kind of like, you know, first your radar kind of goes off. You sense the footsteps. And I have to say also, Marlon has one of the coolest walks in animation. My animator brain was good.
Yeah, we know. I tell him about that all the time. Marlon got a pimp stroll.
Right.
Y'all don't know. Y'all don't know what a pimp stroll is. Marlon's pimp stroll so hard. Marlon's pimp stroll so hard it comes with a theme song and shit. Like Marlon walked through the studio,
probably what I heard.
Where the theme from Shaft is behind him or something. So I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. Yeah.
Well,
but
for the people who are sitting on this chat that do not know me, I'm a brother who's like 5'6" on a good day. And I've always been the smallest cat in class, and you got to have a hard walk when you're small. Got to bring the food up with me walk. Yeah.
Right.
But I mean,
that's the origins.
Just to throw it out there for everybody, like just the level of inspiration that just kind of filled me up. I mean, walking in the same hallway, and then, you know, meeting Bruce, and then like, you know, we met, and then later on we met again. We caught up at it was a graduation, and you drew Kerchak as if it was yesterday you were working on Tarzan. I was tempted to steal that drawing, but it went to but and then Peter also, when we crossed paths at DreamWorks, and it was more so like afterward we really connected. But just like, you know, to see this, to put faces to names that you've seen, or people that you've seen in, like, you know, behind the scenes stuff or videos, like just as a you know, as a Black animator out here, you know, not much has changed as far as the numbers, but, you know, just to see, you know, you guys out there doing that, it was such a big inspiration, you know, to know that people are out there, like, you know, doing what you want to do and actually doing it well. And yeah, those memories are still like just vivid in my head. So yeah.
It's always fun. I guess in this medium, it for me it does that. It transcends that in itself. You get excited when you meet certain counterparts that you respect their work and stuff like that. And I think I met Peter after Guardians, like, so I was already in awe, you know, and it was like, oh shit, that's Peter Ramsey over there. You know, you try to be cool, like that. You know, you do. I mean, it is. I mean, like when I first got to the studio, I remember when I met Glenn Keane, and I was like, and I still, weirdly enough, have the same kind of, when I meet Glenn, it's still that same sort of admiration, you know what I mean? It's still sort of fanboy kind of, but we cool and we boys, but it's still fanboy, you know what I mean? So it's hard to get around sometimes. So, you know, it is what it is. But that's just that's how this industry is. It's like, it's small, and we all respect each other's, skill sets and work and stuff like that, and it keeps all of us kind of energized.
Exactly, because I was gonna say, like, I'm sitting here listening to you guys. I mean, Frank, when I first met you, I mean, you were from Pixar, so I was like, I mean, all of us at DreamWorks were like Pixar. We were like the redheaded stepchild of animation studios at DreamWorks. So
right.
we were like in awe of anybody who like was near Pixar. And Bruce, you were an actual real life Disney animator. Was like, it's that level of skill and working at that level. That's like the best of the best. You're like you're like Dutch Schaefer and Predator, man. That's like
that's
it was the best. Some damn fool accused you of being. Yeah, so it is like we're sitting here, Marlon West, pioneer in effects, Frozen 2. I mean, you name it, man. It's 100% true that there is that sort of like it's more like school where you're like your fellow students and you're like admiring everybody's work.
Yeah.
How, it's just a nice collegial feeling.
Well, I was going to use this moment to like break into like an interview question, because we're actually kind of talking about being fans of each other, and and when I was fortunate enough to be interviewed by Frank and Bobby and Trent, they asked me about who some of my role models were kind of growing up, and whether I had any specifically African American role models as an artist, and kind of the answer was no, because I have Neil Adams and Jack Kirby and Ray Harryhausen and those folks. So when I came to LA, and 30 years ago now, it was meeting a bunch of brothers who were like, it was meeting a bunch of like kindred spirits. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time, I think, meeting Bruce was the first time I heard Floyd Norman's name, that I heard Ron Husband's name, Dan Haskett, Frank Braxton. Those are I was a grown man, or at least I thought I was at the time, before I heard about a lot of these legends. I just was going to ask you guys, the two brothers from South LA, like, who are some of your heroes growing up, the people who kind of made you want to get in the game?
Oh man. Far answer. I mean, I grew up loving stuff like the Flintstones and the Jetsons and stuff like that. So I wasn't even really on a Disney vibe until like maybe I was a teenager, or no, actually I saw my first Disney film. My first Disney film was 101 Dalmatians. I think that was when it cracked me open. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of, this is before the age of videotapes and stuff like that. For all you kids out there, we didn't have, DVD players. We didn't have YouTube and nothing like that. The only thing you had was your memory. That's all you had. So you just had to replay stuff in your head and visualize what, go back and try to draw everything that you remembered. I just remember going back to my room just to empty out everything that was in my brain at the time about what I could remember about that movie, and then went back to go see it a few more times after that, and was just amazed by the character animation in it. The Cruella de Vil song, Roger dancing around. It was just stuff I hadn't seen before, because you don't get that from the Flintstones or anything like that. So I remember, so then from that point, I just remember looking up the idea of animation and seeing those old pictures of, Frank and Ollie and, Willie Reitherman and Milt Kalp. I didn't know these guys. I'm just looking at, okay, there's a bunch of white people to do this. Okay. It's still fun. I still want to try to do this. So my heroes were those guys who sort of made the films at the time. Cause I didn't have anybody in any remote area that even knew what I was talking about, like in terms of trying to be an animator or a cartoonist. They didn't know, how to achieve that. Because again, and this is sort of the result of growing up in sort of an area of have-nots, where that is an attainable dream. It's like, you better sling these rocks. That's what you better do. You know what I mean? It's like, so you really had to sort of find that path, yourself. And, you know, thankfully I drew just good enough to attract the attention of teachers as I went along the way, you know, that would find art schools for me in the summers and stuff like that. And so eventually when I really decided to do this, there's still no one, you know, from even you talk about people of color, because there's no projects on TV that had a focus of that. Fat Albert, I guess, you know, but I knew Bill Cosby wasn't an animator. So like, you know what I mean? You never saw who was making these things. So I just kind of took it at that. Okay, I guess these things get made. My mom, honestly, when I told her that I wanted to become an animator, I want to do this, that's what's on TV. And she was like, boy, these boys are actors. You don't act like. She thought that Fred Flintstone goes to a set every morning. You know what I mean? And he meets Wilma and he has coffee and then there's a director who yells, you know, action. And she had no concept of how animation comes together. So
on the concept of Toontown.
Like,
yeah. That was
straight up. So there was nothing. And it wasn't until, like you said, till I got to school when movies like Bakshi did his stuff and he started to feature some, you know, crazy black caricatures and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you're starving to try to find your identity on screen. So you'll take that, right? You know what I mean? Like you'll take that because it's like, okay, that's somebody who's trying to recognize who I am, you know, or where I come from, or that's somebody, right? Mm. So it took a long time. I think the actual first physical black animator that I saw was when I remember we were at CalArts and we drove to Disney. And this is back when on Riverside, the studio was still on the lot, and on Riverside, there was just a big fence along that, you know, barred it all of Riverside Drive. And so me and my roommates parked on Riverside, hopped the fence, because we couldn't, you know, we were trying to go through, you know, we hopped the fence and just was strolling the grounds, you know, just strolling the grounds, you know, weird, like 4 black dudes, you know, strolling the grounds of Disney, young kids.
Real bad.
Right. And so right before we ran away, we actually walked by the animation building when it was there, right there, you know, and I saw Glenn for the first time. And that's when I got a glimpse of Ron Husband for the first time. I was like, that dude is animating, and he was in the same room Glenn was. I was like, who's that dude? That black dude. You know, and Ron was like, you know, again, you know, Ron was like mutton chop sideburns. I mean, he was a brother. You know what I mean? It wasn't no around that. You know what I mean? Big, strong dude. So that was the only image that I had. And I didn't meet Ron until I came to the studio to work and I had to tell Ron that story. First time I saw you, first time I saw a black animator was when I snuck into the studio at Disney, like in 1980, whatever, 82 or something like that. So yeah, that was the only time I had any kind of odd connection.
How about you, another brother from South LA?
Well, you know, as far as animation, I had a different path than any of you guys. I mean, I was just sitting here thinking about it. It's funny because I did try, you know, little animations when I was a kid and a teenager. You know, I do stop motion with my little Super 8 camera, or I do, you know, flip books, but I never for a minute considered it as like a possible career or anything like that. Because honestly, I just didn't know ordinary people could do that. You know, it just seemed like completely like from another world. So I don't think I ever, as I was growing up, thought, hey, maybe I could do that someday. Just never even entered my mind.
Wow.
So it really, but at the same time, it was like, I would get such an emotional charge from these things. And it you know, just like you guys, I'd watch, you know, Kimba, Speed Racer, like Flintstones. The amount of animation I was watching as a kid was just like, you know, huge. And then on the odd occasion, I would see a Disney film. Like I remember when I was a kid, I think one of the trips to the drive-in, one of the few trips to the drive-in or the movie was like Peter Pan, and that like blew my mind. And Jungle Book, same there, because there was like a, you know, there's that just extra level of depth to the animation and the storytelling and the whole experience. So all of that was kind of going in my memory bank of like, you know, the kind of special stuff. But it honestly, it wasn't until I was getting into my my 20s that I started seriously taking the idea of working in the industry in any way. And for me, it was live action film first rather than animation. First time I started thinking of that was actually something I could do. So, you know, still my role models were like, you know, like Kurosawa, Coppola, you know, it was like, you know, the bigs, you know. And I think I do remember though when Spike Lee started making movies. I remember when She's Gotta Have It came out, and I was just like, wait a minute, what? Because, you know, I knew that there had been other films by black filmmakers, but they seemed like way long ago, like back in the 70s, and like,
Yeah.
you know, I'd known about guys like Charles Burnett who did like Killer of Sheep and stuff like that, but they seemed so like niche and like arty. Oh, you see those in like the, I guess at the museum or whatever, but they never
It was all artsy, avant-garde stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like, you know, but man, when She's Gotta Have It broke, it was like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
he made that movie. It's about black people living today, acting like they act today, and it just like the switch just started to turn in my head, and I got his journal of the making of it and read, oh my God, he raised the money from borrowing money from his family, and he did it on a shoestring, and just the idea that normal people can make these things, and it started propelling me into trying to get into. That was one of the inspirations of like, damn it, I really want to do this. How can I do it? You know, and of course I didn't have any money to make any movies, and you know I had to pay my car note. I had dropped out of UCLA studying fine art because you know I was like, I can't conceptual art. I don't understand what they're teaching me. You know, I would understand it later, and the big part of me wishes I had stayed in, but it just wasn't the place for me. And I was lucky because it led me to understand that what I was interested in was narrative storytelling as a way of making art. And yeah, I mean, just long story short, I found a way to get in with storyboarding, and you know, that was my ladder into getting into the industry.
Yeah, it's funny. You were doing storyboards like the summer I met you.
That's right.
And the first time I met you and Annika was we went to a screening of Do the Right Thing.
That's right. Do the Right Thing.
And
I think I had just started working professionally in movies. I think around the time I met you. So I was still a little kid in the industry.
Yeah, and I was just trying to get in. Well, you know, last Monday, the guys were kind enough to give me an opportunity to like chat with Floyd Norman. And for folks who are looking for that on the Rise Up Instagram, that's probably be dropping in a couple of weeks. But I had a couple of questions that, you know, I have for Floyd that, you know, the brother's so glass half full, actually glass 3/4 full, topping over all the time that I never quite got to this question. But I'm going to ask you, brothers, because I also feel you cats are increasingly positive. But there, you know, there was a 1961 interview with like James Baldwin, and somebody asked him about being black in America, and he said to be a Negro in this country is to be relatively conscious is to be in constant rage almost all the time. And part of this rage is that it's not only happening to you. Now, you guys are some glass half full type of brothers too, and also very conscious about doing black representation on screen in your work. How do you stay positive?
Well, you know, listen, man, I mean, I thankfully in this business, I mean, for the most part, you know, it's, I would say, unlike, I've been on a few live action sets and, you know, experienced forms of anger and stuff like that, right? But when it comes down to it, animation as a medium is, you know, it's a bunch of artists who are, for the most part, are introverts. So therefore, the personalities tend to adapt to the talent. You know what I mean? It's like, I think the talent comes first, and everybody respects the talent on screen. And so for me, it's never been a thing where weirdly enough, race ever came to play because I was never involved in narratives that included me. You understand what I'm saying? So all the films that I've worked on, I've had to neutralize myself because the films weren't about me. You know, it didn't include me. It wasn't even really about my personality in most cases. I could be funny in a film. If you ask me to be funny from an animation standpoint, I could deliver, you know, like worked on Tarzan, I could deliver that type of performance with a character. But at the end of the day, those movies weren't necessarily about including, weren't designed around anything that, any of my experiences or anything like that. So then for me, it wasn't about being angry. It was just simply about, this is where I make a living. And this is how the industry is. Like, you won't get these stories. But then when I got the opportunity to make those types of stories, that's where it got to get weird. You know, it's like now when you know, when I finally get the opportunity to put characters of color on the screen, put people that I know, people I understand, and I don't know if pushback is the right word, but it's about the idea of everybody being in felt different. It wasn't like everybody was in. You know, I mean, Marlon, I know you remember we were working on Bebe's Kids. We had guys who didn't want to work on the movie. Like, and I never had that sort of opportunity where I'm on a film and I just simply tell, I don't want to work on this anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I've never had that.
Yeah.
Never even thought. A job's given to me, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to put everything that I know into it to make it happen. But that's the first time I realized that, oh, I see. I guess if it's something that they don't really relate to or don't understand, then they feel like they don't want to do it or don't want to really try to investigate this side of the medium, I guess, these types of characters on screen. So that was the first time I experienced that. That was kind of strange. And then, you know, then having note sessions and stuff like that where you know, language would get kind of weird. You know, I remember one time we were at Bebe's Kids, and I think some executive, I forget, talking about the activity of the kids inside of the Disneyland gift shop or some shit like that. And we got all excited about tossing gags around. We're all excited, we're all laughing and stuff. And then he says, "Oh, you know what could be really funny is that the little black one, what's his name? Pee-wee, he could go and pick up one of those spears and just like throw it. Like fuck, really? Why do the black kid got to throw a spear suddenly? Like, is that a part of the story? Is that part of the narrative?" Like, it would just be little weird stuff like that would just be, you know, insensitively thought. Now, mind you, he was probably just, you know, all up in the fun and everything like that. But like, you know, of just an idea session. But you get tossed things like that you'd have to, you know, kind of do that, kind of do a take, you know. And then as you find along the lines, as you start to pitch ideas, now this is obviously pre all of this, you know, pre-Black Lives Matter and everything, when no one really had to care. Mm-hmm. And so you go and you pitch ideas. Once I got the taste of, okay, this is cool. I want to tell stories like this, and I want to introduce characters like this and stuff like that. So you start pitching ideas and pitching projects, and then you start getting weird executive notes, you know, about, nah, we don't do this type of thing, you know, when you're pitching projects. I remember the first time I pitched when we pitched Proud Family. I only went to two places. The first place said, we think this is cute, this is really fun. Now, this is the idea of creating Proud Family was just simply from the void of, you know, at this time in the landscape of television, everybody was making the animated sitcom, you know, Family Guy, King of the Hill, Simpsons was deep in its run. You know, it was all these, name them, the Critic, you know, it's like all these different animated sitcoms that was really getting some shine. And so I was like, oh shit, well, we can do this. Like, I can do this. Like, this could be fun to have a Black animated sitcom. Why not? Like, who's doing it? Nobody's doing it. Mm-hmm. So that's when I galvanized all my parts. And the first place I walked into, they were like, oh, these sketches, oh, they're so beautiful. Oh, I get how I get the dynamic. These characters are fun. I see. Yeah, it fits in this sort of area here with what everybody else is doing this kind of thing. And then the executive said, these are cool. This is nice, but you know, we just don't do this kind of thing here. You know, you might want to just go to BET or UPN, which was another Black network at the time. Right. Just go to some Black place and do this, because we just don't do this here. That was weird. I was like, oh man. I mean, like, you're saying that these people just simply don't exist in the pantheon of your studio? Like, you don't see that there's a void here? and we could really sort of explore this together. So this was so now to answer that question, it's like, okay, yeah. So that's where you sort of wonder, about, well, why is this not acceptable? And, no offense, but I'm more, I come from a cloth of Cal Arts where it's lots of times it's about the aesthetic of what you're doing as well as the humor and the fun and all of that stuff, right? And I honestly was just kind of like put off by Family Guy visually, put off by the critic visually. Simpsons was good, because I got that, but everybody doesn't have to be in the lane of that. Like, I think a lot of producers around town accept that sort of crude and crass style as being more adult, I guess. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to, no, they just don't know how to do it right. Does that make sense to anybody around here? Like, visually, you don't have the best artists working on this, and this is kind of what you've settled for. But I truly believe that there had to be a medium where you can have really great written material and have really great visuals to slide right aside of it. Like, why not? That makes it kind of fun and pleasing. I don't think anybody goes out on purpose and, there's not, when you look at the Eric Andre show, if every sitcom looked like that, we'd be like, where's the quality at?
Mm-hmm.
Where's quality at in these sitcoms? Eric Andre is spitting at quality, but they put quality into live action sitcoms and stuff like that. So why in animation did it cheapen itself? Why is the biggest question for me. It's like, what? So for me, that was the difficulty, is trying to get people on board for the idea of bringing some blackness into the kaleidoscope of animation, which has always been, it's always been a thing. And thankfully, Princess and the Frog came around at the time that it did, because you guys know, up to that point, there was nothing black that was going to happen in animation. I just kind of threw my hands up at that point until, I got the call for that. So to answer the question, I don't think it's me. For me now, I've been doing this so long that for me, it's about awareness. And I think because I've been doing this so long now, I feel like, and I've done something that actually has experienced some form of success, it lets me know I kind of know what I'm doing. Because you know how we are as artists. We always question what we do, no matter what. Every time you take your idea to the page, you question it completely. You try to vet the hell out of it. But when you've got confidence, you kind of know what you do. I mean, listen, Peter, I know you guys, when you were making Spider-Verse, you had no idea where it was going. I'm sure you guys were second guessing each other every day, right? Because you don't know. You don't know until you know. And then when you look at it, it's up on screen and it's brilliant and it's beautiful and it's everything it's supposed to be. And we all sobbed when we saw it and we all fell in love with you. It was like, you were like, I knew we were doing the right thing all along. Like, I knew we were doing, it felt right the whole time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's weird because until super late in the process, we're going, did we do it right? Is this right? Is this going to work? Is this? You just don't know until the audience comes back at you.
Yeah, but it allows you to sort of like understand your chops in that whole thing. Now your whole chops are on display and you're like, okay, I know when I'm at my full power, then I know that I'm doing something that is working. That's what gives you the ability to kind of, puff your chest out a little bit when you getting pushed back on certain ideas and you're like, look, I can do this. Just let me do this. I know how to figure this out. And we normally don't get that autonomy.
Right.
Like, that's the difference as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't experience that autonomy. Even when we're working on Frog, I had a pretty good grasp of Dr. Facilier, but I didn't necessarily have full autonomy on it. Like, it's not like I could put stuff on the table that would just make people uncomfortable, or like not quite understand, the movement on the character and why he's acting like this, or certain subtle attitudes. I had to make sure it was familiar with everybody. So I'm still, washing down a lot of ideas. We got into a real session once on Princess and the Frog where, it's like, so I'm handling the villain, and the whole idea with doing a villain is that he's not going to be liked. Like, what's the point of making a villain that you guys like him throughout the whole film, right? He's got to do something, that is going to piss everybody off. So he will continue to be a villain, not just some singing, dancing, guy who has a deep voice. You know what I mean? He has to have something to him that's really driving the story, because if your villain is strong, then the heroine is going to be strong. They support each other. And so I got this one scene where Dr. Facilier he basically tries to kill the Firefly, and so the version that I did wasn't in the boards. The version I did was vicious. It was vicious when he went in to kill this Firefly, because I was like, at this point, you don't want to like him. Like, so he has to go in on this Firefly. So I really had to kill this fire, like step on, like as though he was beating the shit out of somebody in an alleyway. You know what I mean? It was like, it was that moment. The storyboard just had him just kind of delicately putting his foot on the Firefly and kind of squashing him, and I just went in. I went in like an ass whooping, like this big dude and this Firefly. And he's like, if you were looking at this from afar, it'd be like that scene from Training Day where he was just beating the crap out of this dude. You know what I mean? And that was funny to me. And it was vicious at the same time. that this dude would go off on this fly, right? Fly. And he would treat it like it's a grown ass man that he's whooping his ass. And so I did that. And the first that Marlon, we're showing dailies. So I showed the scene in dailies, and Eric Goldberg said, I don't know, I think it's too mean. And I was like, yeah, it is. It is too mean. He's like, yeah, I don't think that it's right though. It's not right. You're right. It's not right. It's too mean. Yeah, it is. Well, then I don't think he should do it. I'm like, why not? Because I don't like him. You're not supposed to like him right now. Like we can have this discussion all day, right? You're right. You're absolutely right. He's doing some foul shit right now. Like, that's wrong. But that's what makes it. That's what makes it strong. Like, that's what makes it strong. But it's like, but now you have to say, okay, this is a Disney film, and we can't just be having no black dude just going in on somebody in a Disney film like this. You know what I mean? So I had to temper the whole scene at the end of the day, because we kind of voted in the room, and I lost out, and that's fine. I mean, creatively, it was good to have that kind of argument, and because it helps you understand the film and how the path and where you guys want to go.
Even the version in the film is still a little rough. It's rougher than the boards.
I want to kill that fly. I was like, I was tearing pages up.
So Peter, so I was thinking about it. Bruce mentioned Spider-Verse, and I recall the year Spider-Verse came out. I think there was a teaser trailer that dropped, I think, the weekend of Father's Day, because I remember like posting it on Father's Day, and it was all, and it was this scene. The teaser was based on the scene where his dad drops him off school for the first time, and he's all like, you gotta say, I love you, Dad. Mm-hmm. And man, I watched that scene, and I was like, I saw myself as both Miles and his father, the kind of father I aspire to be. I saw you, saw Herbert Ramsey and Charles West, and I'm like, I was just like, man, this movie is going to be fire. Just that was something I'd never seen, that kind of black fathering, like in an animated film. And so, like, when you were working on that film, how much did you feel you needed to show up for authenticity's sake? How much did you feel you needed to kind of keep things real?
Oh, whenever I could. I mean, it was, I was like, one of the few black people working on the movie, ironically. So, all the eyes always like, right?
Yeah.
But the thing about Spider-Verse is that, everybody on that movie was so committed to doing right by Miles, because everybody loved the character. Everybody loved, like, the first treatment that Phil Lord ever wrote was so heartfelt and emotional, and like it just became our beacon, So, like, people are always asking, oh, Peter, you brought all that stuff to, all the, the hip hop and the graffiti and the this and the that and the, anything remotely black. People are like, Peter Ramsey, thank you. You invented it. I'm like, no. We had a lot of things coming from a lot of different quarters, like Bob Persichetti, who Bob was on Tarzan. He was animated on Tarzan.
Yeah.
And Bob is a skater and a surfer from San Diego. And in the 90s, he was all about graffiti, hip hop art. Like, so much of that is Bob, like, oh, this would be cool if he was an artist and he did this and we did that. So there's like, it came from, and I mean, a bunch of people on the movie were hip hop heads. So it was like, that vibe was there so much that, for me, it was like, didn't have to do much like actual vetting, but there were some things that like specifically, I think the relationship between Miles and his dad, some tweaking there was like, you know, it was just that feeling of growing up with a black father who was stern, yet you never felt like a lack of love, and you never felt like an emotional coldness, which I didn't with my father. I don't think you know, you didn't with yours either, Marlon. And so I wanted to see that, and I know that I kind of pushed that side of Jefferson.
Yep.
And that went into our pot of ideas, because then, you know, Rodney or Phil or Bob would, oh, what about this then, and build on that, and it was like improv.
Yeah. Or even
like improv.
Aaron.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, with Aaron too. The rhythm, you know, because you know we would all like we all had ideas to inflect the writing or the performances, so it would like things would get nudged, you know, this way and that way, and then you just go. The interesting thing was, usually when I was feeling like, oh yeah, that feels right, that feels real, everybody would independently of me feel it too. I mean, you just have a feeling for when something's
Authenticity.
specific,
Yeah.
even if it's not necessarily your culture. Just say, you know, and it I don't know, the idea that you can't relate to somebody because they grew up differently than you, or they, you know, have a different culture than you. It always kind of like rankles me a little, because it's only like one step of being open to see how like completely universal
Human.
everything really
That's the thing. I think you're right. It's like you humanize the characters. You humanize. We're humans at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
100%.
you put another representation of a human, and when you begin to humanize a race, that's why it touched everybody, because you humanize these characters. They felt like people next door, people who lived in your neighborhood. They felt like real people.
It's because they're doing
And that we don't get the opportunity. We don't get that opportunity.
Yeah, it's just seeing
That's why it was so special, because we never get a chance to be represented in this medium in that way.
Well, it's I think part of it is because the percentage of us being in those kinds of, you know, those kinds of stories, period, is so limited. And then the time of these things, it's like, you know, being able to spend time with a family, and you can see the little quirks, like, you know, he's trying to sing along to the song and he doesn't know all the words. Yeah, everybody in the world has done that, you know. But I mean,
Sure,
you know,
that's great.
it's just little things.
Oh, that's
like
real.
That. I know a lot of people how Rio would break into Spanglish, you know, in the scene sometimes, with just like as an offhand thing, and that we didn't have subtitles.
Right.
That's a subtle thing, but it means, oh, we're not trying to, like, you know, put these people's lives on display. We're putting you in their lives, and they don't have subtitles in their lives. They know what they're saying to each other, you know. So it's it was just little things like that. And I know as we were working on it, we all kind of knew, you know, yeah, it's going to mean a lot to a lot of people. Oh yeah, Miles, we're really working hard to make him feel like he is a real 13-year-old kid in Brooklyn with this background right now. So just to push that as much as possible to make people fall in love with him. But yeah. I know I don't think any of us expected like the depth of the emotion that people came back to us with. I mean, people were just so hungry and so starved to see themselves like that. And it's so ironic, because I'd be thinking, well, shit, there's like, you know, there's how many million Miles Moraleses are out there that any of us walk down the street and see every day.
Right.
And it's just like, when I started thinking about it that way, it's like the lack of representation just gets it's really freaky, because you're just realizing how little the world on the screen actually does reflect anything like reality.
Right.
You know, I'm seeing it at 7:00, and Bobby, I know we wanted to maybe try to open up for questions, but I got one more question that's kind of
I got time.
My heart on the subject.
I got time too, man.
On the subject of mentorship, so I want to make sure I get in, because, you know, this whole thing that Bobby, Frank, and Trent has done has kind of come in the wake of George Floyd, and it's been all about people stepping up, giving back to, and trying to bring young voices forward. And I've had a couple of people, very genuine folks, non-Black people, ask me very earnestly, people who I know on the right side of things, ask me, I'm not black. Is it okay that I mentor a black person or a Hispanic person? Is it, and because I know they're real deep down good folks, I know it's a genuine question. And I said, absolutely yes. And, when I started thinking about my own career, every mentor, anybody who's given me a job, has generally been somebody white, a white dude. I mentioned Arnie Wong earlier, who's Chinese brother. White woman, Kathleen Quaife, taught me how the art of being an effects animator on Rover Dangerfield, taught me my craft. And so I just wanted to hear from you all on that, because I want to say absolutely anybody should reach back and reach across to anybody of any different race as far as I'm concerned. Let me hear what y'all have to say.
Absolutely.
Well, see, I can tell you that's how we really sort of, you bring other artists in this business. Because see, what a movie like Spider-Verse does, or a TV show like The Proud Family, is that once people see themselves on the screen, they come. Now it becomes a medium that becomes accessible to them because they've seen themselves on the screen. So even when we did The Proud Family the first time around, it was hard finding artists of color who could relate to the material, because that matters. You got to understand the material. All right, I'll just say this, just having unfiltered conversations here. It's like, the reason why I have the ability to work on so many other films is because I know white folks. I see them every day. I know white. It's easy for me to animate a white character.
That is one thing.
I know these characters. I've been seeing it, watching it, history, watch the sitcoms, everything like that. I get it. I can do all that all day, right? But what happens is those same people don't invest in us. So when it comes down to animating us on screen, all of a sudden now you have to reach in a different toolbox. They don't do the examination. They don't do the full, thorough, artistic deep dive that they have to do to really capture us and put us on film. So, and now with a show like The Proud Family, so this version, for example, I'm reaching in different places for hires. You know what I mean? So it's like, I've got 3 directors on the show, right? 2 directors are black women who've never directed before. Nicole Whitaker, I hope you out there. What's up? She's doing great episodes. LaToya Ravenel, what's up? She out there, great episodes. So these are girls who never got the opportunity. So now I'm in a position to give people opportunity so they actually can get in this game and improve themselves, just like everybody else in this business had a chance to do. This is not, okay, I'm gonna give you a shot, and if you don't turn it around, I gotta get rid of you. Like that can't be that way. You know what I mean? It's like, I've got to let you get in. I got to let you fall on your face. I got to let you get up and understand how to do it, right? So in every piece of the capacity that it takes to make a TV show, I've got a new black person in the mix, 2 or 3 black people in the mix. So when Disney finally shows the people making the show, it's going to look like the show. And it's going to be very different than what you've seen in this industry in terms of animation and participation, and in terms of representation and diversity. Because we can talk about it all day, really. Because we've been in meetings and people talk about what we're gonna do about it, though. What are we doing? See, I'm doing it. So I've had pushback in terms of people saying you can't hire this person in speech because they've never done it before. It's like, well, listen, I got it. I understand it. I understand they've never done it before. Leave it to me. Leave it to us. Ralph Farquhar runs writing room. Our writing room is amazing looking. It's all, young and old, women and men, all people of color. It's like, this hasn't been done in this business before, but this is what we got to do to really make those changes. So it's about people really gambling on people now that they hadn't done before, in the past. And that's what's really, give the opportunity to those people. Go to different places and find these people. Because they aren't going to travel in most cases through normal art schools and all of this stuff, right? So we've got to really make a real effort to go and find those people, because that's the only way it's really going to make a difference. So I just saw a piece the other day on Twitter where I think Netflix sent out all this filmmaking equipment to somewhere that's what I'm talking about. Like, yes, like that's what you do. That's what you do. You got to reach out to these spots and really truly talk about, you can talk about the opportunity, give these folks the opportunity, and then let them try to learn. And it's not a one and done. It's like you really got to like invest in these people and put the right people around them. So that's mentorship right there.
Right.
What we're talking about is like real mentorship, where it's like, you want this, you really want this, then come on, we can both learn it. I can show you what I know, tell you what I know, and then at some point in line, you're gonna teach me, I guess. But I think that's the only way. That's the difference that has to happen. And we're talking about now. It's just been too long. That's the only way we're gonna continue to keep our faces on the screen. To be honest, I mean, we got the Spider-Verse out there, but can we get more of that? Because it's going to happen when more of us get behind the screen and start doing this stuff, and it'll be a regular thing all of a sudden. Now it's not about black and white anymore. It's about what's entertaining and what's fun, and we're all properly represented, and we all want to go see these movies. So that's where it should happen. That's where it's got to happen. So. Yeah, we got to do it. I'm conscious of it when I'm trying to hire folks now. I'm very conscious.
Yep.
It's such a legacy business. I mean, me and Marlon talk about this all the time, and it's one of the things when I started in animation, coming in from the outside, it's like, you meet people, oh yeah, they started at Disney 15 years ago, or they like started at Hanna-Barbera, then went to here, then went to and everybody knows each other. Everybody has kind of like crossed paths or, worked with each other, went to school with each other, and they've been working together ever since then. So it's like coming in as a newcomer, you come up against like this legacy of like, these people have known each other for 20 years.
Right.
No wonder they're always hiring each other. It's like it's such a loop. I mean, you can't blame people because it's a business where it's like, well, you want to get somebody who's going to do it right, so you
right.
But so it's like, okay, I get that, but it's to the point where, obviously it's to the point where that's a detriment not only to anyone who's black or of color or a different sex or whatever who wants to get in. It's a detriment to the films. It's a detriment to the level of innovation in terms of storytelling, and you can see that like the splash that something like Spider-Verse made is like, wow, it's because it's new. It actually is something new that is filling a space that needed to be filled. So the idea now of like, I mean, I guess you kind of have to look at it as like, yeah, we have to do this kind of outreach. We have to like have something that's like dedicated to these specific people getting these specific kinds of opportunities, because honestly, systemically, that has been the case the other way around. We never looked at it that way because we were on the outside of it by and large, but really is like the opportunities and the advantages were coming all from one direction. So to redress that or to get to anything close to something that's fair, it's like you have to go above and beyond traditionally where outreach and recruitment and stuff like that is gone. And
have to be purposeful.
On mentorship, I'll just say, through my career, I remember first starting in live action storyboarding and just coming in, I was green, I could draw, I knew some film technique and stuff like that. But I'd get in these art departments with like, I remember I'd be on the like Sony lot. Back then it was a Columbia lot, working on a movie in the art department. And, there'd be these like, 55, 60-year-old, white dudes who had worked like since back in the 50s and stuff like that, Great artists, set designers, illustrators. And they'd see me working away and I'd be like, I'm just this, 25-year-old kid. I don't know anything barely, but they'd come and look over my shoulder and they would, oh, really nice drawings. Hey, do you know how to project from a set plan? And I'd be like, no, I don't. Oh, they'd be like, oh, here, come, let me show you. And these like old timers would sit down and spend time with me and like pull out their little like, gadgets and like, oh, here's how you do an angle so you can project up from a set plan and all this stuff that I was like, frankly, okay, I don't really know how to do it still, but they really took me in hand because they saw I was trying and I was sincere and I had something to offer, and they were really like trying to train me up, you know?
Yeah.
And I would run into it over and over and over again in the business from
Yep.
creative people, just like across the board in my experience.
Yeah.
When they see that you are making a genuine effort and have something to offer, they will open doors, they'll introduce you, they'll teach you stuff. They'll
Oh yeah.
So I've had like a lot of like I think of them as informal mentors, but people who really take me under their wing. And, you know, maybe it's just a couple of weeks, but that can change your life.
Yep. A nugget of gold right there.
Know? That can change everything for you.
Well, that's what I said. Like what I do know in this business is that artists really respect artists, and I think I have love for all the artists in this business. People do some incredible work. I mean, I went to school with some incredible artists.
Yeah.
It's really about, you know, at the end of the day, those artists don't have the power. You know, it becomes the executive brass, the deciderati are the ones who are picking people and putting them in spots that they need to be in. Talent is talent. So it's really, it's looking at being able to be the people in the position to make those decisions. That's at the end of the day, being able to have those people having that vision of like, hey, you know, I'm telling this type of story that involves this young, you know, 21-year-old girl, and you got, you know, 2 60-year-old white guys telling the story. It becomes tough to really completely, you know, feel like they can actually relate to it. Not even speaking anything specific. I'm saying that's kind of what it is. Throw a story, but you throw these other people on that don't necessarily have the truest connection to whatever that story is going to be, who those people are. And, but that alone gives you the opportunity to reach deeper inside of the amount of talent that you have that's helping you tell that story, and give that break to that person who actually may fit the voice of this film a bit better, you know? And yeah, that person's probably never led a crew, never directed a film before, never did anything. So teach that person. None of us go to directing school. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, there's not a school called directing school, animation directing. Learn how to direct animation. That doesn't happen. It's you understanding what the medium is, and you adapting to the medium, and then gaining the respect of your peers who believe that you can actually do this and are behind you to do this and want you to do it. You know, that's champion for you to do it.
It's also it is. A lot of it is getting out of like this fear-based dog-eat-dog mentality of, if this person gets ahead, that means I'm going to fall behind, or if I give something, if I pass some knowledge to this person, that means they have it, and somehow I don't have it anymore. And
that's a weird thing.
You know, it's like it's like people have to think of the craft as a whole, of something like, is everybody, you know, can we all advance everything together, and everything gets better, and everybody gets better, and we all support each other,
and create more opportunity.
And create more opportunity.
Recently, there's more games in town.
That's right. Right. Everything gets better at the same time, but it's like, you know, leave no man behind, or woman, or, you know, whatever.
It's that thing.
Fellas, thanks for keeping it 100 tonight.
Yes, sir.
Always.
Really, really quickly, guys. I always wanted to ask this question of this panel, but I would love to sort of get your thoughts on how movements like Black Lives Matter and Me Too have affected the TV and film industries, and the need for more inclusive and sort of diverse storytelling. So I just just kind of want to throw it out to this panel, because we're a comfortable space here, and we can talk, and no one else is listening. So this is. But I would love to hear. Sorry, Marlon, go ahead.
But you know, this is a bit. You know, I work for a big company. It's like a big ship that's hard to turn, but you know, there's already new diverse directors at Disney in the last 5 years who are in development right now. You know, our pal Josie Trinidad is a new director. She was just on here a couple of weeks ago. And she's in development, and so there's new voices that are going to be making films in the next, in years to come. Like, anybody on this panel knows how long it takes to make an animated film. So, the fruit that is coming from both Me Too and Black Lives Matter, will be hitting the screen like 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, and you'll be able to trace it back to the moment we're living in right now. And I got to say it, I don't mean to be like hyperbolic as far as what Rise Up is doing, but the amount of times I've spoken to somebody in one of these like mentor sessions, and someone has said to me like, "You're the first person in the industry I've spoken to." Everybody has just been like so aspirational, and the fact that you've given somebody a toehold, to tell somebody who wants to actually paint backgrounds and design sets for animation or do visual development, that they don't necessarily have to learn everything in Maya. They could actually keep working in Photoshop. That's like a nugget of gold to that person who's like sitting there trying to learn a package that they don't really have to do to pursue the dream that they want to pursue.
Right.
So this is a long ass answer to your question, Bobby, but and there's two other people on here, but I honestly think we're in a moment of time where folks are earnestly trying to be purposeful about bringing new voices in, that it's not just enough to get a brain trust from a certain part of the country or bring some ladies in to talk about women's issues, that to have some filmmakers and storytellers of real authenticity making some of these films.
Yeah.
As we speak.
Yeah, the world changes, man. I mean, it's like, that's the thing. It's like the world changes. It's going to change. I mean, and I think that animation is a medium that needs to adapt to that. Like, sometimes we get comfortable telling the types of stories and making the types of money that certain films like to make. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you got to crack another egg to continue to funnel the medium in the way that it's supposed to be, that it's naturally going to work anyway.
Yep.
I think you fight the tide of change and you're going to find yourself behind. So we're in a moment of time where everything is shifting and changing. And if you're smart, as an executive, you can recognize and see what's happening in the atmosphere, and it's your responsibility to adapt to that. Like, you should be ahead of the curve. No one counted on, Rona being your executive producer. Right? Rona is executive producer of all these films now. But I'm saying, but all the other elements of people and change is as an executive, that's your job. So you have to really understand what really is going to move the needle and continue to move the needle for your, animated film company. I think, and I think a lot of executives have brought everything to task. I know right now Disney's really being strong about what they're really trying to do in terms of, and really being about it. So that's fantastic. We were having conversations even before Rona hit, about stuff and really changing and shifting the paradigm in the studio. And I think that Disney's done really well in terms of really putting a foot forward and really trying to effort the change in that allows their filmmaking landscape to be very different. So those seeds were already in effect. And like you're saying, animation takes such a long time. It's sort of hard to see those fruits right away. But, come another 5 years, when things really start to shift and things are in place, you'll really start to see the result of that. But thank God, like for films like Spider-Verse and Moana, and films that really sort of, now you've got women of color that are in that they show now, like, oh, people do want to go see a movie about some girl from the Pacific Islands. Oh, they do want to see a movie about a black kid from New York. Like, they do want to see those things. Like, yeah, we do. We're starving to see those things because we got kids who keep asking us about when they're gonna see themselves on the screen and stuff like that. It
matters big time.
Yeah, it does matter, man. It's like, it does matter. So I'm glad that the studio's recognizing it, and now it's about birthing more artists to continue to ensure that we always see these films and properties on the screen and on the TV, on the small screen, and wherever else we're going to be seeing shit years from now, because who knows what's going to happen. I mean, I don't know.
On your
hologram TV and shit, I don't know what's going to happen. But regardless, no matter what the medium is, we need to be there in perpetuity as well. So that's what that's about.
it is interesting how much of this I did see these wheels turning even before
Yeah.
George Floyd, before coronavirus. It was, I mean, I was involved in, like, you know, and I don't know if it had to do with if Spider-Verse kind of like, I can only imagine that like nudged the playing field a little bit so that
Shit,
people
a little bit. My ass, shit.
you know, I
Right.
guess, I don't know. But you know, I'm like involved in like 2-3 things that are like, you know, Black subject matter, Black directors, you know, directors from Africa. I mean, like stuff that
Yeah.
I'm just like, wow, this is really cool. You
Right.
know, this is really different.
Makes it exciting, makes it fun.
It does, and the thing about it, I mean, you know, I look at I'm gonna brag about my home team for 2 seconds, but what's going on at Sony Animation, just the number of projects and the people who are directing them and behind them creatively, is like, it really is a real shift. You know, it's a total shift, and so you know, I can only this time feels different. It feels like it's gonna have some longevity. You know, it actually does feel like. I don't know if people like way up are like looking at the demographics and going like, well, shit, this is real. You know, we can't stop the world. Literally can't stop the world from getting browner and changing.
Right.
Can't stop it. And but the other interesting thing to me though is even white artists now, you know, making movies just about white people, they have to look at the world differently now.
Yeah.
And I know they are.
Right.
You know, you just look at the debate over like, oh my God, all these cop shows we've been doing all these years.
Yeah.
We still keep doing it in the same way. And they know the answer is no.
Right.
Everybody knows you cannot keep doing the same thing.
Right.
So the interesting new storytelling and perspective that's coming out for white artists as well as artists of color just getting a shot, that's going to invigorate so many movies and shows as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's rejuvenating for the whole, I think, across the board. Everybody is going to come into this. It's just a new creative field opening up, you know.
Yeah.
And
Well, you start to mine for new stories. You find new stories because you have new perspectives. That's what makes a story new.
There's a lot of white creators, I'm sure, are like, well, I just never thought about that, looking at that from that angle before. What if I took one step to the left? Perfect example, Watchmen.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say that's the perfect example.
That's like, how exciting is that? How like for any audience to see that kind of story in that kind of world.
And you know what's so funny about that? It's like the story is so dynamic. People thought certain elements of it were completely made up. No, they didn't. They didn't bring in airplanes to bomb that town. That didn't really happen. Shit. What? Yeah, that's not in your history book, right? Yeah. So
just
no, that's great.
Like
Do that.
with, you know, with things seen from a whole different perspective than people have ever seen them for in this country. When you get down to it, is like, that's good for everybody. It's gold. It's a gold mine for artists, you know, if they have the I was going to say the balls, but not everybody has balls. If they have the, you know, if they have the compassion and the wisdom and just the humanity to go for it, you know.
That's really what it comes down to. It's the humanity of it all. It's about, we're all humans. We want to be in the game as well.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Bobby, did you have questions that in the chat? Or?
Yep. So we have a little bit of Q&A, gentlemen, and mind
Stick around.
Bring it on.
stick around. Bring it on. So Jane H. asks KL. So she says, what are the things that the crew is looking for in a director, and what skill does one need to be a good director? So I think the ultimate question is, like, you guys being directors yourselves, what do you guys think that a crew looks for in a great director that they work with? Like, what are some things that you guys have learned?
You know, I'll tell you from my perspective.
Yeah.
You know, having been directed and being a director,
Mm-hmm.
I think the realization that I've come to is that crew wants somebody who knows everything about the story inside out. Your biggest job as a director is to be an expert on the story, so that whenever anybody asks you any question, you know, what do you think of the composition of this shot? What do you think of this wardrobe design? How is this, you know, how's the light in this shot?
Yep.
You always go, well, how is it telling this part of the story that it needs to tell?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's your go-to. And if you know the story well enough, you always have an answer. No, you know, that costume at this point, it wouldn't be in that state of distress. As a matter of fact, that character's personality is not such that they'd even have that kind of pattern. So why don't we get rid of that and blah, 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 blah. Any question, any idea that comes up in a story, as a director, you should be able to go to express something about it based on your understanding of the story. So that is like number one. You gotta know your story inside out, and you've gotta, using that knowledge, you have to be able to communicate a vision about the movie. So you've got to be able to got to be able to communicate to everybody working on that movie, you know, what fits and what doesn't, what is in this vision and what is not, you know. And that's the only way you're going to be able to like get people rowing in the same direction and understanding what they're doing.
Yep, I would agree with that. I mean, you have to have a command over the material for sure. From character to story, all the way out. And things shift. Things are going to be malleable in the process. But as long as you understand your characters within that story, even as the story shifts, you know how your characters are going to shift with it because you know who the characters are. Yeah. So all that is necessary. But I mean, listen, young kids, don't, you know, if you come out of school and you're not directing a TV show or a movie out of the box, don't be
encouraged if you're not a director.
That is not a reality. I'm just going to tell you straight up. That's not going to happen. So you really have to earn those stripes. You know, understand the process. I mean, I know I'm answering a lot of stuff here because I get hit on all the time about people who actually, somebody who's probably on the, you know, on the bubble of the industry or always on the outside looking in, that have a project that they want to direct. And they ask me about, what do I think about this, and that, and the other. That's not going to happen. I would want all of you people who have these great ideas to get in the business somehow, be it, you know, PA, apprentice in a position, so you can understand the true mechanics of making an animated film or a television series. Understand the mechanics, understand all the people involved, what their duties are, how they support the project, how you support the project, where your strengths are. Because through that whole time, you're going to understand exactly how you fit into all this. And all of a sudden, that great idea that you had, you're going to either realize it's not so great. I need to come up about, you know, 10, 12 others, you know. But also, you'll develop, hopefully, along the line, you'll develop a love for the business. Yeah. Don't just be coming in thinking that people are just going to be listening. You're just going to be telling people what to do. That's not. That don't work like that. So really get a job in the business. I tell people that all the time. Get a job in the business, and you probably do have a great idea, but you're not going to go straight to the top. You know, you asking for the cherry, and you ain't got nothing in it. You ain't got no cake that's made. You ain't bothered to cut the oven on. You didn't clean up the kitchen. Like, you know, we didn't let you inside the house, and you bringing this cherry trying to put it on top. This is what I do. Take your cherry and sweep the floor for a little while.
But Bruce, why do we think that? Why do we always think?
I have to mute myself, dude. That was laughing over you.
Why do we always think that that's the way to go for us? I don't know.
I think, well, listen, okay, you want me to go deeper with this answer? Yeah. I think a lot of kids nowadays just are, you know, they expect certain things. They just simply are weirdly
Grandpa,
entitled. Like, that entitlement doesn't necessarily work in animation. Like it doesn't. Especially people of color. You can't just be walking in here entitled. So you got to really have a sense of really wanting to earn this. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, somebody said, roll up them sleeves. You got to roll up your sleeves. You got to want to do it. You know, I didn't come in this business as director, and I didn't direct my project until almost 15 years into this business. and directing ain't easy. So it's like, you know, careful what you ask for.
I'm here to tell you.
But at the same time, you want to be able to really love this business, man. I mean, I've worked with producers who hated this business, and it showed. And like, you know, Peter, it's like leadership is key in this. So outside of really, as a director, understanding, you know, the story and the characters and all that, you got to be able to lead a crew. And if you developed a-hole skills along the way, it's going to be tough for you to lead a crew, no matter how talented you are. So
You got to be standard bearer.
Marlon, you were asking something earlier about, you know, it was in a slightly different context, but it was about, you know, how do you stay positive, you know, and in the context of being in a business that can like knock you down and like, you know, slap you around, and you like time after time, if you're going to stay in it, you have to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and like shake off the disappointment or the frustration or the, you know, the embarrassment, whatever it is, you know. You have to love something to be able to want to get up and do that. You have to want it bad enough that you're going to say, you know what? I don't care about this little slight or this microaggression or whatever. You know what? Fuck you. I want to do this. You know, I'm just going to keep doing it because I love it. It's the thing I was put here to do.
Whether you're doing your dream job or not, or working on your dream project, you need to love this stuff.
That's right. Even if you're like, you know, I like, boy, some of the stuff I had to storyboard, you know, it's like, well, number one, I needed to literally keep a roof over my head, okay? I needed to pay my bills. So guess what, kids? It's nice to just have a job sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
Be lucky that you have a job in the field that you ultimately want to get into. That alone is a blessing, you know? I know I sound like Uncle Joe over here, but...
You're going to make me go into my old man voice here.
Yeah, my old man. You earned it, man. We've been doing this long enough now. I probably wouldn't have said these things about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? So.
I know, but it's like you have to, you're learning. Every day you're working, you know, if you're open, you're learning. And you can still be working on your masterpiece on the side.
Sure, absolutely. How hard are you willing to work on your project?
Anybody can make a film anytime. Anybody can write a script. Anybody, you know, you can like, you can do all of that, and you're fulfilling yourself as an artist. But Bruce is right. Learn the craft, you know, love the craft. The more you learn about it, the more, I guarantee, the more you learn about it, the more you will love it. You know, you have your, you know, you got your fellow artists, you're living the life, man. So embrace that, embrace some of the struggle, because that's just going to make you better.
Yep. Agreed. Got another question, Bob?
Come on, we're in the mood.
Bring him. Come on.
Come on.
Sorry, what? Oh no, keep going.
Because it's going to turn into roasting Marlon, you know, if the questions that keep coming.
That's fun.
But what I'm really interested in is for everybody on the panel is like how can we get real a little bit?
Yeah, can we first talk about Marlon on the set of Soul Train? Can we talk about that right now? Marlon look like he on the set of Soul Train, don't it? Like it's like the Chicago version of Soul Train. That's what I'm saying, really, don't it? That's great.
That's right.
I just make Doc
the
mighty Marlon West.
Marlon West. And then you got to go down. You got to go down.
That's right. Then you got to go down the line.
You got to go down the thing, dude.
Marlon got to dance down Soul Train line.
Yeah. I dare you. So I guess I kind of want to touch on. It's a little bit of a kind of like a dark issue, but like I think like, what was your kind of like lowest point that you kind of felt like oh shit, well this is never gonna happen, and how did you climb yourself out of that?
I had $20 in my pocket, and I just came out of I was about a year out of Cal Arts. And the first job I had, I thought I was going to have forever. I remember that. I was working with Floyd. I was working with Floyd Norman, and we were working at this place, Carter Mendes. And long story short, the studio closed up. Cops came.
Cops came? Long story, man.
Very long story.
Wait a minute.
I remember
Wait.
coming to work one day.
Bruce,
And
Bruce,
it
was it
bad
because
luck.
you and Floyd
Hold on,
Norman
Bruce,
were doing
climb out the
something?
window. I'm gonna go.
I know, right? Yeah, that's when being black early, I knew what to do. When I saw the cops there at your job, I know what to do. Cops at the job, turn around, go home. That's so I knew that. That's when. So I remember when that job ended and Phil Mendes, he was trying to get me in the booth. I remember that. Phil Mendes, great guy, artist of color. You guys can Google him, find out a little bit about him. He's great. So I remember so I'm thinking that was going to be my job forever. And then I realized I was out of work for about 3 months. Felt like forever, but it was like that whole summer. And I'm like, that's it. I'm not going to go back to school. And I don't have a job. And I was down to my last $20. I remember I went and gave my portfolio to Duck Soup. Duck Soup was his commercial studio in Santa Monica.
Oh
I
yeah.
remember them.
And showed him my portfolio, whatever I had so early. And they kind of liked my stuff, but didn't have anything. And I'm like, I'm going to keep doing this over. I'm just going to keep getting rejected. And I remember spending my last $20 at McDonald's right there on Lincoln and right there in Santa Monica. I just remembered, I was like, that's it, huh? This is my last $20. Like, that's it. And I went back to the house, and that's when I got a phone call from Don Bluth saying, hey, why don't you come down here? I was literally down to $20, and my mom was looking at me sideways. She was looking at me sideways. For real. You know, your mom walking down the hallway, cutting her eye at you. What you gonna do? Joe lazy. You gonna do that?
Hiring.
My mama, I think I gotta leave today. I think so.
Oh,
Yeah.
Phil Mendes, that's his full name. So somebody's asking in the chat. So I remember that, man. That
So
was.
she looked at you sideways, and you're like, how did you respond to that sort of like savage?
Oh, my mama looking at me sideways. I just got to stay out of her cone of vision at that point. Like I gotta like I don't want to be in the crosshairs. I don't want to be like the public enemy logo. I was that. My mom was. I was the black dude with the baseball cap. My mom had the sniper on me. You know, I'd be in the den at the house. All of a sudden, I see red dots show up on my chest. I'd be like, "Oh, am I getting shot tonight?"
I want to see
I
that.
thought my mama got a gun here somewhere, but
Mhm.
yeah, no, I can't. I had to. That was it, man. That's when I finally got the phone call, and I was like, "Yeah, that was like the lowest point right there." I thought I was done, and I was only like 21 or something like that. I was like, "All right, that was a quick career."
What about you, Peter?
You know, I've been super lucky in that I can't remember. Well, okay, I've had some low moments since I've been in the industry.
Yeah.
That's true. But never anything that was so low that I was like, oh well, I guess this is it. I guess nothing's ever gonna happen. You know, because my biggest low moment probably came after like my biggest high, which was the first giant ass movie. Rise of the Guardians came out, and just that weekend it just went pow. And man, when you start seeing and you're looking at Variety and you see the word epic flop, and then you go down to sentences and your
reviews are awful sometimes.
I'm like, God,
Yeah.
what?
I know reviews can be brutal.
But it was like a surreal experience though, because you're like talking about like, you know, hundreds of millions, you know, millions of dollars, and it's just not even real to you in a way. And you're just like it's it was this bizarre yeah, man, it was like a weird dream because, you know, everybody loved the movie at the screenings. We'd scored the test scores were super high, and I would, you know, I by no means am saying it's a perfect movie because there were a lot I would like to change, but it was like nobody at the studio was like, you know, worried, or it was bizarre. And I do think we were kind of a canary in the coal mine for like a lot of people in marketing kind of like starting to go like, oh, an animated movie is not like an automatic win anymore. Other kinds of movies are actual competition for animated movies too. Because a lot of people were like, "I'll put out at Christmas. There's no other animated movies for them to see. That everybody will come see this one." I was like, "No, they're going to see James Bond and they're going to see Twilight, and they're and you made your commercials made it look stupid." So, but as far as low moments, that was like, that would be a low moment for anybody. It was like kind of like getting that kind of like doing that kind of belly flop on release. But honest to God, my lowest moments were before getting into the industry, when I was like working like minimum wage jobs and trying to figure out how to like, honestly trying to actually figure out, well, what am I going to do with my life? How am I going to,
Yep.
And up until I was like, 25, 26, I was just like hand to mouth, like, I'm serious, like working minimum wage gigs, trying to figure out how to break in somewhere doing what I could do. And, once I got into the industry in any way, shape, or form and could support myself, I was like smiling 7 days a week, man. I'm like, I'm making money. I'm drawing pictures instead of like some of the other stuff I had been doing. I'm like, shit, I made it, man. I'm like, I'll, and then starting to after having the confidence of just being able to sustain myself in the industry, it's okay. Now I have my creative ambitions that I had before. I can actually start to realize them and sort of like, and that's a whole other, Marlon, how many scripts did we sit down and write together and like bang our heads against the wall and like,
half a dozen scripts we worked on together and separately.
That's right. So we got drawers of scripts we tried to write and ideas we had, and just getting
the got options.
Yeah, exactly. Or just calls on stuff, But it's you keep trying, and you keep if you get it into you. I know the feeling I had was like I'd get disillusioned and then something else would happen and I'd just get just enough success at something that it would like pump me up to keep going further. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna give up. I'm gonna, And I'd be able to look over at Marlon. Marlon's like rising the ranks at Disney Animation, King and Aladdin and all this stuff. And I'm like, Marlon's doing great. My brother Eric, Eric busting moves, friends that I had. So it's just that thing of like not you can't let yourself give up if you really feel like this is the thing for you. And I was just in love with movies. I was just in love with watching them and working on them and knowing people that worked on them. And to me it was just Eric is my brother, Eric Ramsey. Somebody's asking.
Yes, storyboard artist extraordinaire. It's funny because my story kind of falls like right in the middle of what you guys said. When I met Bruce at a studio called Hyperion, and they did Rover Dangerfield and Bebe's Kids, and that was my first time that I wasn't working freelance. I worked for 2 years in this studio, and I was like, it feels nice to have a job. It feels nice to have a regular job, and I'll just call unseen classics. And then they quickly got out of the animated feature business. And I got laid off. It was the first time I got laid off, man. And that felt bad.
Yeah.
And
first time you get laid off is never fun.
Yeah. And it's no fault of your own. Like, that's a layoff. It's just like, we're not making films anymore. Bye. And we, damn it, Floyd Norman coming on this month. And then I was like, it applied to me to apply at Disney. It occurred to me to apply at Disney because they weren't going to get out of the animation business for anytime soon. And I decided, and they hired me, they offered me a trainee position and not a full animator. And I was like, it was a pay cut and my feelings hurt. Oh, wow.
No,
really, you were somebody perpetrating.
No, just jumping in.
Just jumping in.
What's up, Floyd?
Floyd, where's your video? You gotta show us up, or
Yep.
can you legally? I don't know if you can legally show us your face.
Well, you turn your mic on.
Oh yeah.
You can drop some knowledge.
I guess so. I mean, like I don't even know if he knows that he's Like,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Floyd,
Oh yeah, I can hear you, Floyd.
Yeah, sorry I can't join you. Legal issues.
okay.
Well, it's good to hear your voice, my brother.
But I've been enjoying the conversation though. Good stuff.
Your
Hi,
name,
guys.
were your ears burning because your name has been ringing out tonight, sir?
We've been listening to you talk about Floyd, so
Hey, Adrian, how
I
you
remember
doing?
what happened.
hello.
Floyd survived the big cop bust at
Yeah.
yeah.
That was fun. Those were good times.
Yeah, they
Guys,
were.
out the window like Malcolm X with the.
There are no bad times in animation.
No,
Even the bad times are good times.
yeah, it was definitely fun.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So Floyd, we have Peter here, we have Bruce Smith here, we have Marlon West here, all of our friends in like animation, and it's
Yeah.
great to hear from you, man. And yeah, sorry, Floyd, what were you gonna say?
Oh, that was me. I was just saying it was such a delight to talk to Floyd last week, and you all are in for a treat when that conversation drops
Mm-hmm.
in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I'd love to join you, but you know what I'm dealing with at the moment. So
Oh, good, brother.
I've just been hanging out, been listening in.
Hey, man,
Yeah.
keep hanging, brother. Thanks for popping in briefly. It's good to hear your voice. And Adrian.
Okay, I will do that.
Take care, Floyd.
Like it.
This is like the supersized edition. Floyd Norman like an hour and a half in. It's a man.
This isn't related to the other thing with the cops, is it?
Yes,
Like,
Always fun till the cops show up. So you know.
indeed.
But I think so for everybody, we'll keep going on the questions a little bit, guys. Peter, Bruce, and Marlon. I apologize if we already sort of touched on this, but like we wanted to know what your feelings on kind of like Black women animators in animation and how we can support them. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? This is not really a question, but it's just kind of like, hi, let's just support our sisters and
We support y'all
Yeah.
sisters, indeed.
absolutely.
You know, it's like it was with anything. It's like, you know, in most cases, I know at Disney we had a nice event with it's Black Women Animate, I think,
Yep.
Black girls.
and really nice, really a nice amount of folk. The thing with animation, I found a lot of those artists are, how would you say, maybe hand-drawn, going into hand-drawn animation approach. Now, the toughest thing about that is that it's hard to really find a true job as a hand-drawn animator. So I always try to tell people to try to develop several skill sets. Like there's skill sets that dive into each other. Like animator and character designer are cousins, you know. And because from a design standpoint, I always equate it to, I like to use a sports analogy a lot. I don't know if this is a sport, but let's just take NASCAR for a second. Now you really got great drivers in the field of NASCAR. So let's say those drivers are animators, right? Boom. They jump into a car, fantastic, they drive shit out of it, it's like they win races, right? But you got to get somebody to build a fantastic car so those drivers can perform. That's the character designer. So, you know, an animator is only as good as a character designer in most cases. So, and a character designer can make a very average animator look fantastic because the design is beautiful. So and I don't know, you know, Peter's crew, for example, in Spider-Verse, but that animation top to bottom was freaking fantastic, top to bottom. But those designs were incredible. Like those character designs were off the chain. Shout out to Shin Yu. So Shiyun. So Shiyun is like an incredible character designer, and I think Shiyun can give an average animator a design, and it'll bring that animator up to speed. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so those two disciplines, they work with each other. Now, also, animator works with story artists.
Indeed.
Those two are cousins as well, because the story artist is responsible for setting the template for the animator, right? So he's the one who's kind of giving you the biggest chunks of what's happening, you know, shot, 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 shot. He's the one creating a sequence. He's the one who's breathing life into the characters early on. So, you know, I love getting good story drawings from story artists that really help me conquer some of the performance already. I see how it's all laid out, how the story artist sees it. And that story artist is close to the directors, so they've already communicated and had most of the ideas, the concept laid out for character.
Yep.
So I would recommend, from if you're trying to be an animator, learn story as well, because story artists also dovetails into being a director.
Yep.
So those things are all married to each other naturally.
Yep.
So that's why I'm saying, if you learn those skill sets right there, you will also find yourself getting more jobs.
Right.
Also, because now you can also do character design, you can do storyboard as well.
Yep.
You know, and when the animation job is there, you can do that too.
Yeah.
So learn more than one skill set.
Yep. Bruce, that's so fan. I think another thing I'd want to ask is Peter and Bruce is like, I'm talking to a lot of VizDev applicants, like VizDev character design applicants, and so what do you guys as directors, art directors, would love to see in a character design perspective portfolio, or like a VizDev portfolio? What do you guys think? What do you guys look for?
You know, you know, obviously you want to see a strong, I would say a bold design sense, you know, some kind of like somebody who's really like making some definite choices, you know, who has really thought about, you know, design wise, who really has like a point of view design wise. And also, I mean, the thing that, you know, you can't really get this until you, well, no, let me step that back. I was going to say, you can't really tell whether someone has a strong story sense before you've like worked with them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you could look at one person's one design or one piece of VizDev or one character design by somebody and tell whether they have a strong story sense over someone who doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's going to be a level of like specificity or like some more character or a bold choice that somebody makes because they know what story they're trying to tell, versus somebody who is just kind of like, you know, doing what they've seen done before, or who's kind of like going on numbers, you know? So that for me, it just keeps going back to, is this person tied into a sense of story? You know, is that why they're making their choices, other than the arbitrary, oh, this looks kind of cool?
Yep.
Actually, yeah.
You know, once you get in the mix, you don't need that. You want, no. I want something that's right for this moment, that's going to plus this moment and like tell the story better. So
I think you laid into it really good, Peter. Sometimes people forget that the purpose of a VizDev artist is to really sort of paint the pictures in a story, not to make just pretty pictures that don't drive anything. I get a lot of VizDev stuff where it just doesn't tell me anything. You may have an interesting style and maybe bit pieces that are bit off of other artists like that. That doesn't matter. You got to be able to tell a story with your pictures. And that makes a great VizDev artist, because VizDev doesn't necessarily have a style attached to it. It's really about how well can you paint, can you give us a moment? How well can you give us beats that represent the film that we're trying to watch, that we're trying to pitch, that we're trying to showcase? That's the best VizDev artists, the guys who can really understand how to tell a story.
mm-hmm.
You know, it's like I was looking at a lot of like Peter's boards are amazing because they play as VizDev. They really they play moments. You know what I mean? They give you real moments. Staging, clarity in staging, emotion. You know, it's like you can really understand what the beats of what characters are thinking, what the story is. Is this a happy moment? Is it a dangerous moment? Is there peril here? All those things are responsible. That falls on the shoulders of a VizDev artist. It's not about how well you can replicate Mary Blair. It's not about that. You know, it's really about how well you can tell a story with your style, with your visual style.
Right.
guys got to know that as biz dev artists.
Oh my God,
100%.
that's great. That's great. Yeah. What are you gonna say, Marlon?
Oh, I was just agreeing.
Bruce, what do you think about what you said was like completely on point? Like, what do you look for in terms of just sort of in terms of like stylistic diversity or draftsmanship or storytelling, or does it matter to you? Or, I mean, because you're hiring up right now, and I think that's a perfect thing to talk about, like what shows are looking for, essentially.
From a TV show standpoint, you know, I mean, like draftsmanship is key. I don't cheat the draftsmanship just because we're working on TV. You know, I mean, that's a myth. I think, you know, the draftsmanship brings itself into any medium. I think you really should have your chops up. All the story artists that I have, you know, I try to really bring in really good draftsmen who can understand comedy.
Yep.
You know, I don't care about the model as much if you can give me the feel of what I'm after, and you can make me laugh and story sketches and stuff like that, and you understand staging, and I'm big on reveals and stuff like that, you know what I mean? So surprises along the way in terms of telling the story, and character, understanding the character, what the character would do, staging, can you paint drama, can you paint the emotions, that, because even though it's comedy, it still has to have, you know, emotion attached to it. Our stories, at least in the private family, are told best when the comedy is riding alongside the emotion and you can center it, you know. But yeah, I mean, that's why one of the reasons why I love TV is because I love how commercials shortcut an idea, like understanding how to shortcut ideas. Sometimes, you know, board artists like to board out everything. It's like, sometimes you got to understand how to shortcut an idea to drive it home as quick as possible, you know, and that comes from just understanding how to pace, how to time, what you need to show. Don't show this yet. Wait, hold it, reveal it later, you know, but how do you play your camera, stuff like that. It's like there's so many really great things that normal television doesn't necessarily do that I love to see. Like, I think Gindi, for example, is great at how he presents, you know, staging and drama and comedy, you know, in like Primal and all of the stuff that he does. I mean, I'm a huge Gindi fan. So, and that's TV elevated, you know, that's television animation that's really elevated.
Right.
That stuff I really like.
Yeah. Like Peter, what are you thinking? Like, we don't have a ton of time, and we're closing in on 2 hours, but what do you, Peter, I kind of want to know, like, what are you thinking, like, in a short term? What are your next steps, and what are your next sort of aspirations on where you want to take your filmmaking career?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff I'm involved with now that either it's in really early stages of development. Yep. Or it's like there's a couple of things that have been held up by the virus. There's a few live action projects because I'm kind of trying to sneak back over into my live action, you know, realize my live action dreams. So there's a few live action projects I'm attached to that I'm super excited about. There's also, I'm executive producing some animated features that I'm really excited about. That I actually can't wait to be able to talk about them more. Because I really wish I could have talked about them tonight because they're super cool. And then there's other like there's like stuff I don't think I can talk about because I don't think
somebody trying to say stuff in the chat room.
Yeah,
trying to out your projects.
So it's like, I would love to be able to talk about this stuff, but there's a bunch of stuff, and I think the main thing for me is, you know, stretching my wings a little bit. You know, I spent so much of my career in the industry, you know, working for other people, basically, or like working on other people's ideas. And you know, I was saying earlier, you got to learn and you got to like stick with it, and you know, and it's like, yeah, okay, I did that. I'm ready to, like, you know, get some of my own. I'm ready to dig into, you know, what I would like to express. So hopefully this next phase is going to be about that, either stuff that I've written or come up with myself, or things that I believe in, or material that's come along that I really like and am really into, you know. So that's another thing. And then, you know, honestly, finding ways of helping people take the next step, you know, what use the foothold that I've gotten now to kind of like, you know, be able to get that door open, or like, you know, give somebody enough of enough help or advice, mentorship. I talk to a lot of people, and like give, you know, it's so funny, man. You get to a certain point in your career, and I guess if you win an Oscar, people automatically just assume you know what you're talking about. So it's like,
Right.
but it's like you have to convince yourself, wow, do I? I didn't 2 weeks ago. Do I now? You know?
Right.
So at a certain point, you just have to, oh yeah, I guess I do. Okay, I know a couple of things. So
You know a thing or two.
That feels like I'm at a place where, oh, okay, that can actually make a little bit of a difference now. So when I can, I do that, and I try to do it as much as I can.
Right.
But yeah, all those things. It really is about, you know, expressing what I have to express from here on out whenever I'm given the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like for everyone here, I can speak for Marlon, Bruce, and Peter. We're trying to just sort of inspire the next generation of aspiring artists that don't necessarily have these resources to connect with industry veterans. And so we're trying to close the gap, just trying to connect them with people that we know every day. And hopefully that will sort of inspire a more inclusive and diverse animation industry, like moving forward, you know, because that's all we're trying to do. Just trying to connect these everybody with us, and I think, you know, thank you guys so much for like coming on board and sharing your stories. And I mean, yeah, I mean, like every honestly, like every single bit, like every single panel, of just kind of like how people can feel like they're connecting with someone in the industry in Hollywood, because Hollywood feels so far away when you're in India or Egypt, or, you know, kind of like anywhere around the world.
You know,
I think what's great about our medium and social media now is that, hey, we know how to produce, you know, projects. Our medium was built to produce projects around the world, basically.
Yep.
You know, via the internet and stuff like that. And social media has been a great way for us to be exposed to other artists that normally, you know, we wouldn't get a chance to be in studio and meet someone from Iran or whatever as an artist or whatever, right? I mean, we were just working with an artist from Dubai, and, you know, I mean, she was a really great artist. But I mean, I don't think we would have had that opportunity, you know what I mean, if it wasn't for, you know, the likes of social media and stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, I hired a story artist that I found through Twitter. So you know, she's amazing. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, like, you know, she's a woman of color. And, you know, Kayla, what's up, girl?
Yeah.
Trying to give all you guys a shout out.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, Kayla?
Every year.
Yeah. So I mean, that's amazing. I wouldn't have found her. She wouldn't have crossed my radar, and she just happened to just kind of throw some fan art out there. And I was like, oh, this is nice. You know, who are you? And then sat, talked, showed me her stuff. Bam, like she was great. So that's always a possibility, you guys. I mean, you guys can reach myself and Peter and Marlon on Twitter.
That's right.
I'm at Bruce Almighty with 3 E's. Bruce Almighty 3 E's on Twitter. And Peter, what's your handle?
P Ramsey 342.
And then Marlon, what's up?
I think my Twitter handle, it's just my name. I think I don't have a.
Just
We easy to find. We easy to find on Twitter. So if you feel like you
Marlon's handle is Marlon West, and then his Bank of America
hysterical
number.
There you go. Right.
My Instagram is STL in St. Louis, as in St. Louis, Marlon West. All
My
one.
Instagram is Bruce Almighty. I just ain't done nothing on Instagram yet. I'm a little lazy. It's tough, man. You know, I'm old man trying to keep up with all these social
No,
media
no, no.
platforms.
That's
I'm
good.
not.
That's good.
I
as we
try,
wind
but
down,
damn,
It's so wild though.
I'm gonna drop something. I just ain't decided what to drop yet, so I'm gonna drop something. It'll happen. But yeah, follow us on Twitter.
I was just thinking as you were talking, Bruce, about what you can do because of social media and the internet now. And I'm just thinking, can you guys imagine 20, 25, 20, whatever years ago, if we could have done this and heard somebody like us talking about this stuff?
Whole different.
You guys, this is like
A whole different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. That's the benefit of it.
A few minutes ago, because what Bobby, Frank, and Trent have created, this network of industry veterans, and I mean veterans, man. There's some people who sign up to do this stuff that are working with folks who just are interested in animation, and they're all around the world, and with all levels of skill. And it's really, really beautiful. And if you go on to Rise Up onto their Twitter, the discussions we got, I think is this the record of the longest one? But there are some golden nuggets of lectures and conversations that people had. And this is going to be a moment in time, and it's going to just last. Because if you go back and you look at some of these other discussions that people have had, it is wonderful. I just want to thank you guys, Bobby, Frank, Trent.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. We love these outlets. I mean, like, especially, to get access to get more artists and stuff like that. And then putting a face to the name and stuff, all those things matter. Now you put a face to the art. I mean, you guys, Marlon's killing it over there. Like, he's legendary over the studio at Disney, but but you guys don't understand what that means. Like, you know what I mean? It's like to be, a legend in the studio. At that the legacy that studio's laid out, Disney, is amazing. It's an amazing feat. And Marlon is and I mean, there's no other artist of color that's been in effects and has performed the way Marlon has in this business, man. It's like, I totally respect you, bro, because we were there in the beginning and watched you, you know what I mean? And you do amazing work. That piece that you did when you were breaking down all the effects from the film, dude, genius shit. You know what you're doing, and man, hats off to you. Well, we'll all work together again one day. All three of us, we'll get together something.
All four of us.
Got it. Yeah, all four of us. There you go. Sorry, Bobby. Jump on in, bro.
Hey, I don't need to be a part of it.
Come on now.
I don't need to be a part of it. But I mean, honestly, Marlon, Bruce, you guys are heroes, fucking heroes of mine, and I really, really mean that. I don't say that in jest. Bruce, I've looked. I remember seeing you on Emperor's New Groove, kind of like extra features, like a long fucking time ago, and then Tarzan and all that too as well, and then Peter Ramsey. I mean, you're like the king, man. I mean, like we met at Oscar season, and you guys won it, and then you went back the next year for Her Love.
Great, man. Yeah, he's legendary. So we were at Sony one time, and I just after Peter won the Academy Award, I just had to park in his parking space just to feel what it's like.
Wait a minute.
One day Peter wasn't there. I was like, let me just pull into this space. Let me just breathe in. Let me breathe in his. Was that? That was you. That was me, man. I pulled in your space. That was me. I'm sorry about that day. You couldn't park.
No, but Bruce, you were on Hair Love too, right? So you got to
Bruce? Yes.
Yeah. Talk about Hair Love.
Yeah.
I was one of the directors on Hair Love. Yeah, my Captain Ward back there somewhere chilling. But yeah.
Yeah.
I barely.
So yeah, man, Peter's legendary. So yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Your space is all warm and cozy. It was nice. Cool.
I really appreciate that you guys because I all I wanted to do was amplify like Black director voices on the Rise Up Animation platform. I wasn't sure how I was gonna do it, or I wasn't gonna sure if anyone could be down for it, but Marlon, he's become like an integral part of our Rise Up Animation. And thank you guys for, kind of being part of this and
Thanks
just
for
kind
this
of like,
opportunity, because I mean, these two brothers I've known for like more decades than I'd readily like to admit, because but it's so true. So to be sitting here keeping it 100 with these cats that are almost like, that are like family to me. So it's really cool. So thanks for the opportunity, and thank you.
Hey,
No doubt, man.
200 of y'all who stuck around for hanging with us.
Let's do the sequel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It'd have to be like 5 years after we've done something, because animation takes so long. You know what I mean? I can find Peter like, I can finally talk about this project now. Kind of how this is gonna work. But yeah, let's do it again. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm down.
that'd be good.
Indeed.
But
Cool. Thanks a lot, Bobby. Peter.
Peter, Marlon,
Cool,
thank you guys
fellas.
so much.
Cool.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. And bye, everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Oh,
Thanks,
yep,
y'all.
there were still
Thanks, everybody in
300,
the chat room.
350 people here. So
Yeah.
let's shout out to our hometowns. Seattle, Washington, where you at in the building? Nope.
What up? What up, Washington High? I'm coming after y'all marching band. I'll tell you why later. Coming after your marching band. Go back to my high school,
Peter
get my
Ramsey.
marching band.
Peter
So,
Ramsey, shout
I'm
out
saying
your
South Central representing up in here.
My fellow natives.
South
come on,
Central.
Bring the love. Let's
Bring
do
love.
it. Just
Dallas.
West Chicago.
Mexico.
St. Louis.
Wow. We up.
Is that my sleeve still up?
Rio
I know
de
Brooklyn.
Chicago.
Brooklyn's in the house.
Oh my God.
Monto.
It's
James
so
Brown. San Francisco.
Brooklyn, Kenya, Kenya. Can you raise your hand and then we can bring you on screen?
What's up?
Kenya?
From Kenya. Ooh.
How does one raise hands in Kenya? Anyway.
Why representing up in here?
Under participants.
Colombia.
Kenya can get there.
Oh yeah. Wait. Ooh.
I wish I had a cool African last name. They're so beautiful.
Oh, Zimbabwe. There you go. Zimbabwe showing up.
Way.
Oh yeah.
Malaysia. She says, my hand is up.
I don't know if we can do this. Yeah.
India.
Oh wait, Tokyo. Oh, press the icon.
Oh, the Bahamas. There you go. Is there an animation school in Bahamas that need a teacher? I'm ready.
I know.
Ready.
Shit. That's fun.
Let's do it.
Oh yeah.